Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Small Business. My name is Kevin Dandino, and of course, this show is brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency. Today, I have a pretty fantastic guest, Blair Drake from Inte3grated Solutions. Blair, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
That's fantastic. We were talking a little bit about before the show here. You said you're a Denver native too, and I was kind of talking about my Broncos podcast. So
Yes.
just got to ask. Draft was just last night. How are you feeling about the Broncos coming up this season?
You know, I always I worry about the Broncos on a pretty
Yep.
consistent basis, and I will be very transparent with you. Is I was actually really excited to kind of see where the Buffs players went. So Shador and
There you
Travis
go.
Hunter. So it was an exciting piece to watch, especially knowing we have some locals that have been playing here. So yeah, but I'm always hopeful for the Broncos. I always want them to do well. It
Me
just doesn't
too.
always come true, So
Nope. Believe me, I am fully aware.
yes.
Well, seriously, we're not here to talk about the Broncos. We're here to talk about you and your business, and I'm excited to hear about everything you do and kind of break it down for us. So, kind of start off by telling us the story of Inte3grated Solutions, how it got started, and we'll kind of take it from there. But
Sure.
over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, so Inte3grated Solutions is my consulting business. It's strategic operations consulting business, and I just launched it this year. Throughout my career, I've been in a lot of corporate settings, a lot of startup settings, and I actually like to tell everyone that I'm a recovering auditor. So I used to be in public accounting, so I'm very much a numbers person and very detail oriented. But my career kind of took me into the operations and client experience space, eventually in financial services, and then more into some other different startup organizations such as prop tech. And so what I realized after a little bit of self-reflection is what I love to do is come into a business, understand what's going on, where they're looking to go, and then how can we actually create the proper guardrails for the business to operate efficiently, as well as making them kind of strive for long-term success. And so I'm really kind of taking my history and what I call is taking the show on the road and trying to go out there and help other startup businesses really set themselves up for success long term, especially knowing that small businesses is really like the heart of our nation. And so I want to really help those support that side of the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm going to have a bunch of questions for all the technical side of things that you do.
Yeah.
I tried to be a technical major in college for 3/4 of a semester,
Okay.
and it did not go well. So
Well, it's more than some.
that's true. That's true. But I do want to ask you about the name of your company, and as I was prepping the show here and making sure I think spelled right, it's E3 Inte3grated Solutions, but the way the logo is, the name is put together there, you got the E3 in the middle and stuff. So just walk us through, like, what's the purpose of the name? What's the story behind it? I hear fans love to kind of hear that stuff, and I'd love to hear it myself. So
Okay, cool. Well, it's kind of one of these things, like when I finally decided like I'm going to start my own business, I wanted to have a name that was professional, but also like very in line with kind of my personality. And I'm a numbers person. I love the numbers. And so I was trying to figure out like, hey, what are some words that kind of represented what I've done in my career? And I kept coming back to the words efficiency, effectiveness, and execution, because at the end of the day, in any company that I've been in, that's what I really focus in on. And so how I approach every job is we're going to do a very efficient and effective execution of whatever roadmap or plan that we're trying to implement. And so I'm not here to run up costs as a consultant. I'm here to get in and get out and make sure you are set up for success long term. And so then I, kind of twisted it with my math and my affinity for algebra. So E3 is in parentheses, because if you are a math nerd like myself, you always start with what's in the parentheses and then you work the rest of the equation. And so therefore, it kind of stands for my ability to understand your business holistically. And what we're doing is integrating all the pieces of your business in the appropriate way so that all the gears are turning as they should be turning and as smoothly as possible. And we're going to make sure we do that effectively and efficiently.
Wow. So that's really cool. I think when you hear those stories, it really just puts that personal touch to the business,
Yeah.
and everyone just has their own unique story. It highlights their personality, like you were saying. So
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate it because everyone I says like it really highlights your nerd. And I take that as a compliment. So
You should. I'm a nerd too, so I'm
yeah,
right there with you. You should take it as a compliment.
I do. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I'm really interested to hear kind of how you go about your business strategy, right? Are you focused in on a specific type of business, or is it any business owner? Kind of how do you go about starting? Getting integrated with the business. Once you've found a client, and just walk me through that whole process.
Okay, cool. So where my area of expertise lies originally is really in startup organizations. And so
Okay.
typically, when a startup has begun their journey and they've really kind of validated, like, we have a service or a product that consumers want, and they're starting to see that high growth, then that's really when a Blair should come in, right? Integrated solutions
Mm,
can come in at this point and really start understanding, okay, what are your pain points? Because inevitably, when you start to see that high growth, you're going to start to feel a lot of pain points. Some of
right.
your maybe more manual processes have been broken. You have bottlenecks because you have a smaller team. So you have a group of people that have this wonderful knowledge, but there's not enough of them to go around based on the growth that the company is experiencing. So that's where we really need to start coming in and evaluating, like, what are the people, what are the processes, and what's the technology we have in place. I've seen a variety of instances where they'll just start throwing technology in all over the place. And so they spent a ton of money on a lot of technology, and none of the technology is being maximized. It's also been
Yeah.
really expensive, and none of it's been integrated, and it's not doing what they thought it would originally do. So, and similarly, we've also realized, as you are in a startup, the people that are the gritty ones that are starting at the very, like, day one of a startup, they're not always the ones that are going to be the ones to take you through that high growth area. And so it's
Right.
really being honest and starting to talk about, like, who are the people we have in place? What is their skill set? And do we have them in the right seats? So a lot of it is like people management and really talking about sometimes some hard conversations about where are you at, how are you performing, and how can you continue to be a part of the business in the most
Right.
impactful way possible. So I'm typically working with startups, but what I've also found is that I have a lot of more established businesses that are smaller that maybe have been around for a longer period of time, but they're kind of looking for that next stage of growth, but they're not quite sure how to get there and they're feeling a little
Mm,
stuck.
yeah.
So that's where I can come in and start talking about, like, okay, let's look at what you currently have and then figuring out how everything's working and where we can create some efficiencies and maybe get some creativity in there as well. So that's what I love being able to do. And I think I'm a big proponent of having a fresh set of eyes on things. Even my work that I do, or, content that I'm trying to post, I'll throw it out to some of my peers to say, like, hey, how does this sit with you? What do you think about it? Really talking about that fresh perspective coming into those businesses and someone that's not as
Mhm.
familiar with the day to day or even the industry at large, because they can have kind of a new profound look at what's going on, what's new, how can we approach this in a different way. And so those are really where I love coming in and learning. One, I love learning all the time. That's really how I've gotten my career, is in all the jobs that I've had, is I kept being pulled and plucked into different ways because I'm a very quick learner and I love being able to make positive impact at a very efficient manner. So, what I do with my clients when I bring them on is typically, and this isn't always, there's a multitude of ways that I work with clients. There's some that I work with them in a fractional COO capacity. So, fractional is a little bit of a newer term for some folks. And so, especially with startups, the cash flow is fairly minimal. So, bringing on a full C suite is not always the best idea from a cost perspective, because if you start looking at that, right, you have salary, you have benefits, you have vacation time, you have all the things, and those really add up, especially in the C suite. So, if you can bring in a fractional, this person is going to be able to come in. It's a fraction of the time, which is probably what you need at this point, and also quite a fraction of the cost. And so you're being able to get that subject matter expertise at that leadership level at a cost that makes sense for your business at that time. So I do perform fractional, like, COO work for clients. And then I also can work on a project basis. So if there's something like, we have this one project, we can't seem to get it over the line, can you help us get it over the line? I can
Mhm.
do that. I have a lot of project management experience, and I love being able to kind of get in the weeds. But kind of where I love to start, and I think it's more holistic and it's actually more impactful long term, is I have a business assessment that I complete. And this business assessment is able to go into any business at any point in time and really understand the lay of the land. And we look at the business in a holistic manner. So we're looking at all the pieces of that make up your business. So when you think of HR and hiring and your sales and your marketing, your operations, your client experience, accounting and finance, all the pieces that come together to create that business is what we look at. And we understand, like I said, those people, processes, and technology within each vertical. And then what we do is we understand what is your strategic objective. So if you have one for next year or 3 years or 5 or 10, whatever that is, we go ahead and look at what those strategy is long term. And then what we do is we go in and pull out what are the areas of opportunity that are really going to stump you from getting to where you're trying to go. And then from
Yeah.
there, that gives me an analysis of your business to say, here's all the areas of opportunity. Here's like the things that we need immediately. I kind of call those the on fire things. These are the things we need to address immediately. Here's the next area that are going to be like second phase approach. And then here's like the there or the best practices that'll get you to where you need to go long term. And so what happens with this is I can do this assessment for them. We have a roadmap that basically comes out and says, here's your roadmap. Here's what I would recommend based on what my findings were. Here's the total executive summary for you. And at that point, they can go try and implement it themselves. They can go somewhere else, or I can actually work alongside and partner with them in order to start implementing that roadmap. And then also helping them to bring in people that are experts in their field that can say, hey, we're going to bring in maybe a fractional HR person to help with some of these things that we need around getting the right people hired, or an accounting team, or operations
Right.
and client experience I would actually be in. But you kind of get the picture. I have some power partners that I work with in order to really get you where you need to be in a quick manner.
That's it's a lot, and in a really good way. I mean that in a good way. It's you talked about like the people side of things as well, but you're also you have expertise in the project management kind of side of things, and kind of like what you're talking about in terms of just getting a fresh set of eyes on things. And
Yeah.
I think I'm guessing that you have to be pretty dynamic in how you approach things because every business is different. You can't apply the same model, the same strategy, the same thought process to one business to the next. So how many clients would you say that you've had over the years, whether just a guess or kind of curious how many years you've been doing this? And
Well, so
um
I just launched this business in January.
okay.
I've actually been doing a similar job at a variety of startups for over 18 years.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
I just started this business on my own. So right now I have one client that's been with me. Actually, I launched in January, but she kind of helped me get my start because she was like, I wanted to bring you in right away. So I started
Yeah.
working with her in October, and then I currently have a handful of proposals out, and then I do a lot of like activity work with other entrepreneurs and peers even in my network, and we do a lot of ideas and bouncing off each other, and somewhat of a barter system. So like I have a friend that's a
Sure.
fractional controller, and so I'll help her with her operations, and she may help advise me on some of my, some of the accounting stuff that I haven't dug into in years. So
Right.
that's what
Right.
I've been working on right now. But I'm hoping by the end of this month I should be sitting at probably about 4 clients.
Okay. So would you say that, it sounds like you built up quite the network, over the years, and especially in terms of moving over to starting your own business. Um, I think that says a lot about a good strategy for people looking to start their own business. I mean, kind of maybe a silly question, but how instrumental do you think that that's been in helping you find this early success? And how do you approach networking? What do you think of when you hear the word networking? What kind of things do you do?
Yeah, I actually think networking is a key to any business. Like, I think, regardless of size. And I think I actually kind of learned the hard way is because
Hmm.
when I was kind of going through my career, I was always networking. I'm a very like extroverted person. And so I always
Sure.
meet people and connect with people. However, what I realized is that in earlier in my career is that I wasn't nurturing those relationships. It was relationships that made sense at that point in time based on the business that I was in or whatever I was doing, right? And so when I started getting this idea of like, hey, I really want to potentially start my own business, I realized like I have a great network, but it was stale. Like I hadn't caught up with people in a long time. And so I think that was one of the keys is once I got this idea of like I want to do my own business, I really started networking. Like I mean networking all the time to the point where my mom or my daughter
Mm.
says, Mom, were you at an event tonight? Because I was doing so much. But really, I feel like I was kind of making up for lost time. So, like, my biggest thing is like, if you ever think that you might start a business, like, network and continue networking and be consistent and authentic. But because I've kind of like put it on like power mode, it's been super helpful because I have continued to meet the most amazing people. And I will say,
Mm.
especially here in Colorado, people are willing to help each other and especially other women. Like there's a lot of female entrepreneurs that are entering
Sure.
this entrepreneurship of life, and and all of them are so helpful. Like, who can I introduce you to? Sometimes I don't even ask. They're like, you know who you need to meet? You need to meet so and so, and they just send me
Right.
an invite. So I think that's been the really good thing is like I always show up as my authentic self, and I really just I want to meet people, and I don't go in thinking networking is about getting leads or getting business. I think of
Yeah.
networking as I want to talk to people. I want to learn what people are going through. I want to learn their stories and really to connect with them. And I've met some of my best friends through networking, and it's really worked
Hmm.
out that way. So I think networking can get kind of a negative connotation at times. And so
Exactly.
I think
Yep.
if you flip that in your mind, flip that mindset, I think it can actually be really fun. And don't think of it as sales and think of it more as like, hey, I'm meeting more people and I'm continuing to learn through these people.
No, I think that's a great mindset. If you go into it, like you said, wanting to learn about people and just wanting to make those connections,
Yeah,
the things that will help you and your business, they'll come just naturally,
I
right?
agree. Yep.
Um, you know, so many times I think business owners just get caught up, being behind closed doors and getting stuck in the office. That it is tough. I get it to go
Yeah.
out there and present yourself to people, right, and make
Yeah.
time for that. But it's almost like when you're a business owner, you're always in business owner mindset, right? I'm
Yeah.
the manager, I'm the owner, I'm always in that mindset. But to kind of like you said, flip the switch a little bit, flip the
Yeah.
script. Okay, I'm here to meet people, right?
Yeah.
If I meet someone that's going to help me out, maybe they'll be a client, maybe they'll be able to put me in touch with someone that can help me out. You never know, right? But the
Yeah.
intent is to meet people, connect, and have that positive mindset about it. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so with you kind of being a experienced, but still at the same time a newer business, kind of curious, what kind of pushed you over the edge to wanting to start your own business versus just keep doing what you were doing? Because it's a challenge. I can
Yeah.
imagine. So I kind of want to hear your story about what it's been like to go through that experience and what pushed you over the edge to wanting to go do it.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I get this a lot, and it's actually I think it's an interesting story. So, I decided to leave my last job, and it was a personal decision. So, I was like,
Sure.
I'll take a little time. And this is when I started thinking, like, hey, could I do my own business? Like, what would that be? And I mean, my mind was everywhere. I was thinking, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a little shop in my neighborhood? Or I could do consulting, or I could, I was going to buy a winery here that was locally up for
Oh, there
sale.
you
Like, I was looking at everything. And I mean, I
go.
was
Right.
really all over the place. And I was also at a point personally where I was trying to kind of figure out my way. I had just had a child not that long ago, and then I decided to quit my job. And so I was trying to kind of figure out my way a little bit. And so I joined some networking things to help me kind of like reevaluate like who am I? What do I bring to the table? What do I really want to do? What lights me up? And so that kind of pushed me into like, hey, you should try your own business. And for me, I think I was thinking of it in very absolute terms of like, if you're going to start your own business, that's all you're going to do. Like, that's your job.
Hmm.
Whereas
Yeah.
I joined a network called the Leap Academy, and they actually are like, hey, this can be your career experiment. And so when you put it in that terms, it didn't feel as scary of like, well, doesn't have to be a forever thing. This can be like a let's try it and see how it goes. And so it was very strange. I always say the universe works in strange ways. As soon as I kind of had that mindset, one of the gals from my network reached out to me and she's like, hey, I didn't know you weren't at this company anymore. Can you come help me? I need your help. And so I was like, oh, so I mean, I didn't set up my LLC. I didn't have a bank, like none of it. So like within a week, I had like the LLC set up, the bank account, a contract for my client, and then a roadmap for
Right.
what I was going to do with my client. So I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this. And so it kind of like forced me to get in there. And so like I always tell people, like, I think I kind of put it in the universe, and then it was like, okay, let's do this. So I've been very fortunate to have her, like she kind of helped push me to get everything started. And then now that I've really started like I guess embracing entrepreneurship is like making sure like I'm being seen, making sure I have a website out there, making sure that people know like what I'm doing. Never
Mhm.
assume people know what you're doing. You really have to explain it. And I think I took that for granted.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Um, I like how you kept your options open, though, right? I think spending that time to really think about what are you passionate about, what's going to help keep you driven. Um, it could be tempting for a business owner to just sit there and say, well, there's no restaurant within 2-3 miles of this location, so I think I should, be a restaurant owner. Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe there's a need or a want for some type of business in that area, but is that what you want to do? Right?
Yeah.
Is that what's going to drive you to continue to be passionate and keep things going? Because you could probably, I'm guessing, when it comes to preparing yourself for all the stress and the time commitment of being an owner, like you can mentally prep yourself only so much, and then experiencing it, totally different ball game.
Totally
Right.
different ballgame. Yes. And that's one thing too. Like, I mean, it's probably like I'm a former auditor, like I said. So I'd always tend to do a lot of due diligence on things. And that was one thing
Yeah.
before I decided to like go all in. I actually reached out to my network for people that have done consulting and just chatted with them and been like, what's your experience been like? What were the good, the bad, the ugly? And they were
Mhm.
so helpful in just saying, like, hey, here's some things I ran into. And so it didn't necessarily say, like, okay, I'm ready for it. But at least I kind of went in knowing, like, hey, there's going to be some ups and downs, and you kind of got to be able to roll with it a little bit more. And so entrepreneurship is definitely not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
For sure. Totally understand. Well, with that, I kind of want to ask you, what kind of struggles have you found over the course of starting the business? I know you haven't been doing it for too long yet, but with your career kind of getting you to that point, and how did you overcome those kind of
Yeah.
situations?
Oh, I found one of my first pain points was like the marketing. The
Mhm.
marketing and
Yeah.
branding was, and it seems like it would be like kind of fun. Like
Right.
people in marketing and brand, they're always fun, like creatives, and
Right.
turns out I am not a creative. And so that was one thing, like I realized after I took time to think about it, is that I was like, why am I dragging my feet on like setting up my brand and the website
Mm,
and all that stuff? It was because those are the things that don't light me up. And I was just like not
right.
wanting to do it. And so I finally, one of my friends had kind of come to me and was like, you should just hire somebody. And I was like, I really don't know if I have that kind of money. Like I've heard that it's really expensive, and I'm a new business. I don't have that kind of
Right.
cash flow yet. And so it, again, the universe was like working its magic, and someone in my network connected me with another person that does digital branding. And so her and I were just going to meet just to like get to know each other again, like networking. There was nothing, neither one of us were trying to get anything out of it. And we hit it off so well that she was like, hey, can we meet monthly and just like check in with each other? And I was like, this is awesome. Like a business bestie, right? And so then what
Sure.
happened was after I started talking to her what she does, I was like, do you think that's something you could do for me? And she was like,
Right.
yeah. And it ended up being like she was super affordable, super easy to work with. So finally, when I delegated that task and let her do my branding, and obviously I was a huge piece of it, but she did all the heavy lifting of what she loved to do. And that's how I have like my website. I mean, the fonts, the colors, like all the things came from that. And I know like
Right.
I don't know if I would have still had it done if I didn't hire her.
Sure.
So I think a lot of it is like really understanding like where are your strengths and where are you not strong? What are your weaknesses? And making sure you find the right resources that can help you with that, because it's going to just catapult you so much faster.
That's fantastic. That's a really good piece of advice right there. And something that I'm sure every single business owner is going to deal with, because you can't tell me there's a business owner out there that loves every single facet of their job.
There's no
There's
way,
just no
right?
way.
And if they are out there, I would like to meet them.
Yeah, because then it's probably something I might want to try it then if it's that
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
totally. So yes,
Oh
it was
man.
a challenge.
Well, something else we were talking about before the show that I kind of wanted to bring up here and have you explain a little bit more about was the idea of community involvement. It sounds like you got a couple things going on. So, it seems like every business owner kind of again has a different mindset, kind of similar to networking, but similar or a different mindset when it comes to how they approach community involvement with their business.
Mhm.
What that looks like, what they do, all those things. So, for you personally, like how do you approach it through your business?
Sure, it's a great question. I think even before I started my business, I've always I'm a giver. And so I love being a part of things. I love helping and I love giving back. So, I mean, I've been a Max Fund volunteer, a dog walker for many
Okay.
years. And so that's been something I always love. I love animals. But now that I'm kind of like in this more businessy side of things, what I've been trying to do is like, what are things that I can give back to people that maybe have been in my position before, right? And so one area that I've been volunteering in now for 2 semesters is with the School of Business here in Denver. So CU School of Business, they started a program for females. So and it's called Empowering Women in Business, which I think is
Mhm.
like amazing. And what they do is they have a whole course that you can get credits for that will go towards your degree. And they will pair you up individually with mentors across Denver. And so I'm a mentor. I
Wow.
have a mentee. I've had this is my second semester, like I said. And it's so great because I think of myself when I was in college, like I didn't know any of this stuff. And this course would have been magical. Like I feel like it would have set me at least a few steps ahead of where I started. And so I love doing that. And so I actually meet weekly with my mentee. And we go through a whole semester together. We meet in person, we meet via Zoom, and we really just talk about like the world of business and like after
Yeah.
college, like what does that stuff look like? So I've helped her with resumes, I've helped them with networking, just like experiences that I've had. And then they have like a big at the end, or actually, I think in the middle of May, they have a big presentation that they do to everybody. So we get to go watch it and like support them. So that's been really fun because it's something that I would have loved to have had. And then
Yeah.
another thing, I just was selected as an advisor for the Bridge Entrepreneur Network here in Colorado. And so, what this network is a not for profit organization, and they help startups. And so, they have some different programs that they offer, but it's at no cost. And it's really to help accelerate these startups and really make sure that they're successful long term. And so, I was just selected as an advisor. And actually, I have my first event coming up on Saturday. There's an event called Future Fest in Civic Center Park. And there are some students that are going to be pitching. It's kind of like a Shark Tank situation. And so I'll
Sure.
be a judge, and these kids are up for winning some money based on their pitches. So I'm like, wow, like it's just so cool. These are things that I would have
Hmm.
loved to have done when I was younger. And so I love
Right.
being able to be a part of that now.
That's fantastic and a very unique thing. I haven't heard anything like that yet
Yeah.
in all the interviews we've done here on the podcast. So I really like the building of the future aspect of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's given back and everything, but it's also true to you, and your
Yeah.
personality and your passion. And I just think that that's a huge part of what should be involved in community involvement. It's
Agreed.
not a chore. It's not for personal gain. It's to get involved and just help out and be a part of the community. And I
Yeah.
think you found a very unique good
Yeah.
thing for you.
And
um
it's so rewarding. I mean, being able to help
yeah,
people, it's like, oh my gosh, they're so thankful. And I learned stuff from the students that I mentor. So it's like,
right.
it's like, gosh, great idea. So I really think it's a give and take relationship regardless.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that. Seriously do.
Yes.
um well, as you know, I'm an insurance agent, and so part of that is I really love hearing about the customer policyholder side of insurance,
Sure.
and helping me get a better understanding, right, of what it's like, because I'm not a business owner. I can't fully put myself into those shoes. So, part of this podcast is asking, basic insurance type of questions, because I think it's something every business owner has to deal with. It's something we don't want to, but we have to. But then, what is it like, so that I can, all of us here at the agency can do a better job of supporting our clients and business owners. So, with that being said, when it comes to insurance, what are some of your pain points? What are some things that are maybe unique to you and your business that you gotta that you have to protect yourself against, or and what do you look for in an insurance agent? It's kind of all those things kind of wrapped up into one. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And what I'll say is like I still think I'm figuring it out, to be totally honest. And I think as a
Sure.
new business owner, I think figuring out like what is the right level of insurance for your business, right? Because I
Mhm.
mean, I know that I have risk if I go into someone and I consult them on something. There's a risk that if I give them advice and it doesn't work or it takes them down, like I could get sued, right? And so for
Right.
me, I wonder like what would I put in place in order to help mitigate that? I've, written language in my contracts from a legal perspective in order to protect myself, but I mean, there's always the risk from an insurance perspective. And so for me, like when I've started kind of exploring more insurance options and like just talking with people because your broker, your agents that you have, like they're humans too. And I think at the end of the day, if you don't have a good connection with them and an understanding, I personally am like, how can you know what I need if you don't even know what I do? Right. And so I think being able to connect with somebody and someone that's really willing to understand what it is, who you are, what do you do, and like what are maybe some
Hmm.
risks that I may not be thinking about that maybe you have seen because those in the insurance industry, you've seen, claims of all sorts, types, colors,
Yeah.
sizes. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you don't know what you don't know. And so that's one thing I've talked with a lot of my peers about of like, oh, well, what do you have? What do you have as a policy? Like, what are you paying? And some are like, oh, it's so
Sure.
cheap. And I'm like, how can it be so cheap? So I think for me, it's like really
Red
the
flag.
explanation
Red
of like,
flag.
yeah, exactly. But like I approach it similar to like my personal policies is like I want to make sure that I'm getting a fair deal, but I also want to make sure that I have the appropriate coverage, but also through people that I can trust and I can relate to. And that at the end of the day is really important. And it probably doesn't help that I'm like a client experience stickler because that's what I do for a living is implement client experience, journeys for some of my clients. And so I think really that customer success piece is extremely important. So I've had to fire insurance agencies before because the
Yeah.
customer experience was terrible and
Yeah.
I I won't stand for that.
No, I think that's a perfect, response to that kind of situation. Standing up for, when somebody screws up that badly, right? You got to make the decision. And probably something that's tough for a lot of business owners, having uncomfortable conversations, especially if you're inexperienced, right?
Yeah.
Um, just working and seeing with managers in the past, it's something that doesn't come naturally to everyone, right?
No.
So
No. Yeah.
it sounds like there's a level of trust that you really got to build with your insurance carrier or your insurance agent. So I
Right.
appreciate answering the question. Brought to you all here by Centennial State Insurance Agency. So
Perfect.
thank you again for answering that. And I do kind of want to just wrap it up here by allowing you some time to tell people how they can find you, any other information you want them to know about you and your business, and give you that opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. First of all, it's been great chatting with you. I've loved
Yeah,
being able to
definitely.
get to know you. And just so the viewers know, I'm actually going to be chatting with Kevin about more insurance stuff later. So I'm
There
continuing
you
to
go.
learn too. Never feel vulnerable in that area.
I didn't tell you to say that before the show either.
No, you didn't, but I do think it's important. So what I would say is if you are interested in learning more or you want to pick my brain, like reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Blair Drake at, on LinkedIn. And then I do have a website. It's e3integratedsolutions.com. And so the E3 is now out of the parentheses because I had to get my domain.
Yep.
But you can reach out and then my email is also Blair at e3integratedsolutions.com. You're always welcome to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help. And even if it's just like around networking, I network all the time. So if you're ever like, hey, how do I find out about networking or you want to go to events, please let me know. And then also, if you know a startup or you have a startup or your business is feeling stuck and you want to just talk through like, what are those pain points? I do offer, a free consultation and I will tell you, like, if I'm not the right person, I will tell you. And
Yeah.
if I know someone that could be the perfect fit for you, I will definitely make sure to get you in contact with them. So, like I said, I'm always happy to help. I love helping small businesses thrive and we need more of it. So please reach out with any questions that you have.
Perfect. Oh, Blair, it's been great talking today. Thank you very much
Yes.
for joining me and sharing your story. As your business grows and develops, love to have you back on the podcast down the line. You can share some more stories and experiences that you've had as it pertains to growing a small business, moving out of just the startup phase to growing and becoming more stable there. So love to have you back on down the line.
Yeah, that would be
For
awesome.
anybody,
Thank you so much.
perfect. Love it. Absolutely love it. For anybody listening out there, if you're watching, you want to find the contact information for Blair here, you can always reach out to us on our group page on Facebook or at the Centennial State Insurance Agency Facebook page or LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to provide you that information as well. Please make sure you are liking, sharing, and subscribing to this podcast. We have an open invitation for any and all business owners. So if you are a business owner yourself, or know of one that would love to be on this podcast and highlight themselves in their business, it's like I said, open invitation. Just reach out to us. Let us know that you're interested, and we would be more than happy to get you all set up with a recording time and get you a slot. With that being said, again, thank you to Centennial State Insurance Agency. If you're looking for a quote, personal line or commercial line, whatever, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to see what we can do to get you set up there as well. But other than that, Blair, again, thank you very much. We will see you next time. And for everyone else listening and watching, wherever you're listening and watching from, thanks for tuning in. And we will see you next time on another episode of Behind the Small Business Podcast. Take care, everyone.